Hello everyone, and welcome to today's third grade math lesson. We are going to be doing part 2 for word problems that involve division. So for this lesson, we will first be reviewing our vocabulary. Next, we'll be going over the 3 strategies that we can use for word problems involving division. After that, we will solve some word problems using division that involve equal groups, arrays, and measurement quantities, such as those found in a recipe. And finally, we will recap and conclude our lesson. So for this lesson, you will need paper and a pencil, as well as some counting manipulatives. So here I have some gold stars. You can also use beans or beads if you like, and you'll need about 30 to 40 of these counting manipulatives. So let's start out by reviewing some vocabulary. So our first vocabulary word is multiplication, which is the rows by the columns to find the product. So for example, if I have 5 rows and I'm multiplying it by 2 columns, then I would have 10 total. So I'll show you how that works. So say I have 5 stars, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I put my second column down, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you can see that I have 5 rows because the rows go horizontally, so 5 rows going this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 2 columns. Columns go up and down, so 1 and 2. 2 columns. So 5 rows by 2 columns, and if I add up all the stars together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, we see that we have 10 stars total, so 10 is our product. So again, that's multiplication. Now division is the opposite, which is the inverse operation of multiplication. So for example, if I start with a total of 10 and I want to divide or share these equally between 2 groups, I would find the number that is in each group, and that answer is called the quotient. So here I have 10 stars, and if I want to divide them into 2 equal groups, I'd place 1 star in the first group, 1 star in the second group, a second star in the first group, a second star in the second group, a third star in the first group, a third star in the second group, a fourth star in the first group, and a fourth star in the second group, and a fifth star in the first group, and a fifth star in the second group. So this is division, when we divide a total number by the number of groups, in this case 2 groups, to find the number in each group. So our first group has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars, and our second group also has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. So that's our quotient. 5 would be our quotient. So 10 divided by 2 equals 5. So that's division. Our next vocabulary word is equal groups. Equal groups means that there's the same amount in each group. So for example, if one group has 1 star, then the other group also needs to have another star. And if there is a third group, that group would need to have 1 star too. If I added a star to my first group, I would also have to add a star to my second group and my third group, because equal groups need to have the same amount in each group. So now my groups are still equal because they all have 2 stars. Another vocabulary word that we'll be talking about in this lesson is arrays. Arrays are rows by columns. So if I have a 2 by 3 array, then that means that I have 2 rows and 3 columns. So you can see that here with the dots that I drew. I have my first row and my second row, and 3 columns. 1, 2, 3. So again, 2 rows, 3 columns. And I'll also show that using my manipulatives. So I'm going to have 2 rows, so 1 and 2, and then 3 columns. So I'm going to add some more columns. Okay, so now I have 2 rows, 1, 2, and 3 columns. 1, 2, 3. This is a 2 by 3 array. Now our last 2 vocabulary words are product and quotient. Product is used for multiplication. It's like the answer that we find when we're using a multiplication equation. So for example, for 5 times 2 equals 10, 10 would be the product. And then the other word is quotient. Quotient is used for division. So if we have 10 divided by 2 equals 5, then 5 would be that quotient. So again, product is a term for multiplication, and quotient is a term that's used for division. So now let's review the strategies that we can use when we're solving for word problems involving division. So there's 3 main strategies, and those are going to be drawings, manipulatives, and equations. So let's go over the first one. So drawings means that we're using dots or something else that uses paper and pencil or pen. to symbolize the multiplication equation. So for example, 2 times 3, we know that 2 stands for the rows and 3 stands for the number of columns. So here I have 2 rows. I did the dots that show 2 rows, 1, 2, and then 3 columns, 1, 2, 3. So that's a 2 by 3 array. And if we were to add up all the dots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we could see 6 dots total. So 2 times 3 equals 6. So that's how we solve it using drawings. There's also another way to solve it, which is through equations. Or, sorry, let's actually do manipulatives before that one. So manipulatives uses the stars or beans or beads or whatever you have. So for that 2 by 3, it would still be 2 rows by 3 columns. So I'd have 2 rows here. So 1, 2, and then 3 columns. I'm going to add some more columns. All right. So 2 rows, 1, 2, and 3 columns. 1, 2, and 3. So if we add these all up, we could find out that the number of stars is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 stars total. So just as there were 6 dots total in our 2 by 3 drawing, there's also 6 gold stars total for our 2 by 3 as well. So drawings and manipulatives are both strategies that yield the same answer. Now our last strategy, our third one, is equations. We can use an equation to solve for a multiplication or division word problem. So for example, for 2 by 3, so 2 times 3, if you use your multiplication facts, then you know that 2 times 3 equals 6. And if you don't know your multiplication facts yet, that is also fine, because you can refer back to your answers for drawings and manipulatives to find out that 2 rows by 3 columns was 6. So all 3 of these strategies will give you the same answer. And then for division, you have a total divided by the number of groups to equal the number in each group. So for example, if I had 6 stars total, and I wanted to divide them into 2 equal groups to find out how many stars are in each group, then I would share them equally one by one. So 1 star for my first group, and 1 star for my second group, then a 2nd star for my first group, and a 2nd star for my second group, and then a 3rd star for my first group, and a 3rd star for my second group. So you can see that each group has 3 stars in it. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So in other words, 6 total stars divided into 2 equal groups, 1 and 2, means that there would be 3 stars in each group. So 6 divided by 2 equals 3. Let's try some word problems now. So whenever we have a word problem, it's always good to think about what we know based on the word problem, as well as what we need to know. So on your piece of paper, I'd like you to write what I know, and then leave some space, and then what I need to know with some space. So I'll let you pause the video to do that. All right, so our next step is to read our word problem together. Jill likes painting rocks. She's painted 20 of them and wants to share them equally between her 5 friends. How many rocks will each friend get? And I'll read it one more time for you guys. Jill likes painting rocks. She's painted 20 of them and wants to share them equally between her 5 friends. How many rocks will each friend get? Okay, so first let's fill out our part about what I know. So what information do we already know based on our word problem? Well, we know that there's 20 rocks because it says she's painted 20 of them. So let's write 20 rocks. 20 rocks is kind of like our total, the number that we start out with. So 20 rocks. Now what else do we know from the word problem? What other information might be important? Well, 5 friends could be important because Jill wants to share her rocks between her 5 friends. So that's kind of like the number of groups that we're going to have. So I'm going to write groups. You could write friends too. That also works. So she's going to split 20 rocks between her 5 friends, or between 5 groups. Now, what do we need to know to solve for this? Well, we need to know how many rocks each friend will get, because it's asking how many rocks will each friend get. So we really need to know what the quotient is going to be. We wouldn't say the product, because product is for multiplication, whereas quotient is for division. So we're looking for that quotient. We're looking for the number for when 20 rocks are divided among 5 groups. We're looking for that number, the quotient. Okay, so we can solve this using 3 different strategies. Drawings, using dots, manipulatives, using gold stars or beans or beads, and equations, using multiplication facts, or division facts in this case. Okay, so let's start out with drawings. So let's use dots for this. So we know that there's 20 rocks, so each dot is going to symbolize a rock. So let's do 20 dots. And you can do the same on your piece of paper. Okay, so I have 20 dots, 20 rocks, and it says 5 friends, 5 groups. So let's draw 5 circles. Okay, so now we have 5 circles, and we're going to put our rocks one by one into the circles. So I'll cross off a rock and put it in our first group, cross off a rock and put our second group, cross off a rock and put it in our third group, cross off a rock and put it in our fourth group, cross off a rock and put it in our fifth group, and so on and on. So you can do this as well. All right, and so whenever you are done, you can take a look at this and see if yours matches up. And again, our question is asking how many rocks will each friend get? So this is one friend, this is another friend, another, another, and another. So we can look at any of these friends to see how many rocks the friend will get. Notice that these are all equal groups. They all have the same number of rocks. So our first friend has 1, 2, 3, 4 rocks. Our second friend has 4 rocks. Third friend has 4 rocks. Fourth friend has 4 rocks. And fifth friend also has 4 rocks. So how many rocks will each friend get? Each friend will get 4 rocks. So we're going to write 4 rocks. All right. Now, reflecting back on the strategy of using drawings to find the quotient, do you think that this strategy was efficient, meaning that it kind of worked well for the problem? Or do you think that it was a little more complicated or harder than it needed to be? Well, I agree that it did get us the right answer. We did arrive at the correct answer of 4 rocks, but I think it was also a little bit inefficient because we had to draw all of our dots and then we had to cross out all of our dots and put them in here and here and here all the way, and it could have been very easy to miss a rock or to add 1 too many or 2 too many or things like that. There's a lot of ways that we could have accidentally messed up this problem. So I want to refer you to my next strategy, which is using manipulatives. If you don't like the drawings because it can get a little complicated, well, you could always go with manipulatives. Okay, so we know that there's 20 rocks total and that there's going to be 5 groups, and we need to know the quotient. We need to know how many rocks each friend will get. Okay, so let's start out by drawing our 5 groups. Okay, and now using our manipulatives, we know that we'll need either 20 beans or beads or stars, whatever you have. So let's start out by counting those. You should have 20. Okay, so after you have all 20 of whichever manipulative that you're using, we're going to divide these equally among the 4 groups. So I'll put my first star in the first group, a first star in the second group, a first star for the third group, a first star for the fourth group, and a first star for the fifth group. I'll keep on doing this until all of my stars are gone. And you can do the same with your manipulatives. All right, so after you're all done doing that, remember that our question is asking how many rocks will each friend get? So we can look at any of our groups, any of our friends, and we'll find that same number each time because these are all equal groups. They have the same number in all of them. So our first friend has 1, 2, 3, 4 rocks. Our second friend has 1, 2, 3, 4 rocks. Our third friend has 4 rocks. Our fourth friend has 4 rocks. And our fifth friend also has 4 rocks. So how many rocks will each friend get? Exactly. Each friend will be getting 4 rocks. So you can see that we found the same answer whether we used our manipulative strategy or our drawings strategy using dots. We still got that same answer of 4 rocks per friend. Each friend gets 4 rocks. Now there's one last strategy we can try, which is the equations strategy. So we have 20 rocks and we're dividing them among 5 groups according to what I know for what we wrote down. So we're going to write for our equation 20. 20 is our total, divided by, so that division sign, 20 divided by 5 groups, so 5 friends. So 20 divided by 5. And if you know your multiplication facts, then 20 divided by 5 equals 4. And if you don't know your multiplication facts or division facts yet, that's also fine. We're using division here because of our division sign. So if you don't know your division facts, that's also fine because we found the answer using our drawings equation as well as our manipulatives equation. We found 4 rocks each time, so that's where this 4 comes in. So again, 20 divided by 5 equals 4. Now I'm missing something right here. Do you know what I'm missing right here? If you said the unit, you are correct. We have to know the item that we're referring to, which in this case is rocks. So Jill is going to give each friend 4 rocks. So our unit is rocks. So again, if Jill painted 20 rocks and she wants to divide them or share them equally among her 5 friends, then each friend would get 4 rocks because there's 4 stars in a pile or 4 dots in a pile. Okay, so let's try another word problem now. This problem is a little different because it is part of a make-believe recipe for how to make cookies. It talks about the amount of sugar needed to make a quantity of cookies. So let's take a look at this really quick. So to make 30 cookies, we would need 3 cups of sugar, among other ingredients. And then to make 20 cookies, we would need cups of sugar. So we have to figure out how many cups of sugar we would need to make 20 cookies. So let's read this really quick. How many cups of sugar do I need to make 20 cookies? Okay, so let's start by writing down what I know with some space in between and what I need to know with some space. So on your piece of paper, you can write down what I know and what I need to know. And I'll let you pause the video to do that. All right, so for what I know, let's look. Well, we know that 30 cookies would use 3 cups of sugar. So let's write 30 cookies equals 3 cups. And we'll just remember it's cups of sugar. So 30 cookies equals 3 cups. And then what we need to know is 20 cookies equals how many cups? We don't know how many cups of sugar, so that's what we're solving for. Okay, so first things first, I want to point out that 30 cookies and 3 cups, you get to 30 and 3 by dividing it by 10. So 30 divided by 10 is going to equal 3, which means that 20 divided by 10 is going to give us the amount of cups that we need. And you'll learn about this process later, how I solved that in a later lesson. This is called proportions. So you'll learn about that topic a little bit later. But basically, I used a proportion to figure out that I would need to divide 20 by 10 to get our amount of cups. Okay, so I'm going to write that equation down. 20 divided by 10 equals, and that's what we're solving for. Okay, so first, let's use our strategy of drawings before we use manipulatives and equations. So for drawings, we know that there's a total of 20 cookies. So let's do 20 dots. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll let you do this on your paper as well. And double check to make sure you have the right amount. All right, and after you're all done with that, we know that this has to be 10 groups. That's a lot of groups. So let's draw 10 circles. Okay, so now let's divide or share these equally among the groups. So I'm going to cross out my first dot and put it in the first group. My second dot goes in the second group, third dot goes in third group, and so on and so on. So make sure you're crossing off your dots as you place them into the different groups. Once you've reached your last group, you're going to start with your second dot in the first group, all the way down. Remember that each group has to have an equal number of dots. That's what equal groups means. Okay, so after you're all done with that, this is to solve for 20 divided by 10 equals So 20 dots divided into 10 groups, all of these, is going to have how many cups in each, like how many cups of sugar that is needed. So basically we here have 1, 2, so 2 cups. 1, 2 in the second group, 1, 2, third group, 1, 2, fourth group, all the way for all of these groups. So in other words, 2 is going to be our answer. We would need 2 cups of sugar for the 20 cookies. So that solves our problem. So how many cups of sugar do we need? We need 2 cups. 20 divided by 10 equals 2. So 20 cookies is going to be 2 cups. Let's solve this using some other strategies though, because this strategy wasn't completely efficient, right? Because we had to do all of our dots, and then we had to double check to make sure we had the right number of dots, and then we had to cross them off one by one as we put them in our groups, and it's just a little bit of a complicated process. So let's see if we can do it an easier way, using manipulatives. Okay, so just like last time, we have our equation of 20 divided by 10, so we need 20 stars or beans or beads, whatever you have. So you can count those out. All right, so after you have 20 of your manipulatives, our next step is going to be to create 10 groups, because 20 divided by 10 is what we're solving for. So 10 circles, squares, whatever you like. I think I'm going to do squares this time. And you can draw these on your piece of paper as well. We're going to follow the same process that we did for our drawings strategy, except using manipulatives. So I'll put a gold star in the first group, a gold star in the second group, a gold star in the third group, and so on and so on. So you can do the same with your beans, beads, stars, whatever you have. All right, after you're all done with your first group, all the way to the 10th group, you're going to start with giving a second star to each group. Okay, So we can see that these are all equal groups, and that's because they have the same amount of stars in each one. The first group has 2 stars, the fourth group has 2 stars, the second group has 2 stars, the 10th group has 2 stars. All of these groups, all 10 of these groups, have 2 stars. So they're all equal groups. Okay, so again, it's asking how many cups of sugar do I need to make 20 cookies? So what we did is we took our 20 stars, we divided them into 10 groups, so that's what those rectangles are, the squares are. We divided them to 10 groups and found that there were 2 in each group. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, all the way for all of these. They all have 2 in each group. So 2 is going to be our answer. And we have to make sure we include our units too. Our units are cups of sugar, or 2 cups. And you could add of sugar if you want. Of sugar as well for this one. Okay, so notice that these are the same answers. Both times we got 2 cups of sugar. Now there is one last way that we could try, and that is using equations. So here we have 20 divided by 10, and we had already solved this through our drawings and manipulatives, but 20 divided by 10 is our equation. And if you know your division facts, then you know that 20 divided by 10 equals 2. And even if you don't know your division facts, that's also okay, because we found that the answer was 2 using both our manipulatives, our gold stars or beans, as well as using our drawings. We found 2 cups of sugar for that too. And let's make sure to add our unit, which is cups of sugar, to get our final answer. So our equation would read 20 divided by 10 equals 2 cups of sugar. So how many cups of sugar do I need to make 20 cookies? I would need 2 cups. And again, we'll learn about proportions in a different lesson, but if 3 cups makes 30 cookies, then 2 cups makes 20 cookies. So again, we found out that we need 2 cups of sugar to make 20 cookies. So to review what we went over during this math lesson of division with word problems, we first talked about our vocabulary terms of multiplication, division, equal groups, arrays, product, and quotient. After that, we reviewed the 3 strategies that we would use for these word problems. The strategies were drawings using dots, manipulatives using our stars, beads, beans, whatever we had, as well as equations with multiplication facts. After that, we solved for some word problems that involved division, such as equal groups, arrays, and measurement quantities, such as that one that we solved with a recipe. So I hope that you enjoyed today's lesson, and I'll see you back for a new one.